Absolutely. I don't have to go mad.
Well, somebody's got to pay the bill.
Exactly.
Ketchum. Ketchum.
The big jersey's not gonna be ready in time for Market Fest. Well, we have Hockey Day, Minnesota Day at Market Fest on July 14th. The jersey won't be ready. Okay, we'll have it for Township Days. We'll have it for Township Days, we'll have it for Presidents. No, I'm making a huge jersey. 12 feet tall, 8 feet wide. All the kids are gonna sign it. It's gonna go in a rink when we're done. It's gonna be a fundraiser.
It's a lot different than what I was picturing. You're not going to wear your Gretzky.
Good to go. Hockey game, it's big jersey. Carted around with us. They're having a fundraiser at Big Wood. It's just, use our parking lot. That's the same night, yeah, it's July 14th. Jersey won't be ready. Because they, no, because they created jerseys, the Bears. That's the design. I'm a big fan. I can't make them go straight to my July 14th market is deadline.
Meeting to order here. Will the Assistant City Manager / Clerk please take the roll?
Member Walsh.
Here.
Hughes.
Here.
Jones. Here. Edberg. Engstrand.
A quorum. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jumping right into item 2B, minutes of the regular City Council meeting on May 24th, 2022. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes pass. Item 2B, minutes of the City Council work session on May 24th, 2022. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Moving on to item 3, adoption of the agenda. Anyone have any amendments, changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Moving on to item 4, consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. All right, item 6, public hearings, we have nothing scheduled. Item 7, unfinished business, nothing scheduled, which brings us to item 8A, resolution approving a request by Schaefer Richardson for concept stage approval of a planned unit development at the 3600 and 3646 Hoffman Road. Mr. Lindahl.
Mayor, members of the council, before we just jump into this item, I just wanted to make sure we clarify for maybe some of the people in the audience that had been here for some of their other planning items that were on the consent agenda, that with the adoption of the consent agenda, those items have been approved. So you're welcome to stay around for as much of the council meeting as you'd like, but your items have been now, the council has taken action on your items. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
They're doing efficient work around here tonight.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
So just so I'm clear, so all of the consent agenda items are approved?
That's correct. Yep. We're all set.
You guys are efficient.
You could stay. Just,
Yep.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
He's going to go home and watch
It's a beautiful summer Minnesota night, though.
Out there.
so hurt.
All right, let's jump in. Let's hear about the Schaefer Richardson project.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Again, the item before you, as you mentioned, tonight is the Schaefer-Richardson Concept PUD request, case number 22-2-PUD. The subject properties are located at 3600 and 3646 Hoffman Road, or just to the east of the intersection of Highway 61 and County Road E. Peter Orth of Schaefer-Richardson is representing the applicant tonight, and I believe is available in the audience for questions for the council. Have them. The subject property, just to give you a little bit of background quickly on the site, the subject property is guided in the comprehensive plan as transit-oriented development, but zoned B4 general business. That distinction gets us to the reason we're processing this as a plan unit development or PUD application tonight. The comprehensive plan having a transit-oriented development category guides the property to allow apartment-style development. But the zoning ordinance has not been updated yet to facilitate an exact zoning match to that. So the PUD tool helps us in the interim to allow development consistent with the comp plan. Again, the concept stage PUD is what's before the council tonight. It's the first of a 3-stage review process for PUDs. The concept stage review that's before the council tonight has had a neighborhood meeting, public hearing, and review by the Planning Commission, and is now before the council. That process a similar process would follow for the second stage, the plan unit development stage of the PUD. Again, so the council and the Planning Commission would see this at least one more time should the council act on it tonight. And then the final stage PUD is an administrative review that takes place at the building permit process, just to make sure that the building permit that's submitted matches the PUD that was approved by the council. So the proposal tonight includes 2 apartment buildings totaling 243 units. As I mentioned before, this application included community comment that was gathered at a neighborhood meeting on March 4th. And the Planning Commission public hearing that occurred on May 23rd. There's details about that in your packet. Be happy to answer questions if the council has them on that. Just as a note here in our discussion, the land use application, again, is that concept stage PUD. Part of the discussion in developing this concept from the applicant had included discussion of potentially including up to 20% of the units targeted to be affordable. The concept discussion that's happened so far has been that those units would be affordable at the 50% area median income, or AMI level. Again, there's more details about that in your staff report. But as part of our discussion here at the end of the night, both the applicant and staff is looking for some general feedback from the council about the interest to have affordable units included in this proposal, and whether or not you would consider using TIF to support those affordable units. But staff would also like to just emphasize the discussion about any potential inclusion of affordable units and use of TIF is just a general concept, general feedback for the applicant, so we can begin to finalize the development proposal in the next stage of the PUD review. There is no entitlement, no hard decision that's made tonight related to TIF. That's not what the ask is before you tonight. The ask is for the approval of the concept stage PUD. And as I mentioned, the Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval with the revisions that are, again, detailed in your report, and I'll give you a little bit more review on those here in a few slides. As I mentioned, the comp plan guides this site for transit-oriented development, similar to the Barnum site that is located directly to the east. The site, as you see it today, includes the stadium bar restaurant with its associated ball field, and then the additional property that's directly to the north. It's surrounded again by the Barnum apartment building that's directly to the east that you can see has begun, in this dated area has started construction. And then the existing apartment building to the north and the parking lot to the east. Again, included in your packet is the applicant's concept site plan that you see here. It includes a two-building design with the southern building that you see in the bottom of this slide abutting the County Road E portion of the site. That's proposed to be 4 stories and 119 units. The northern building is proposed to be 5 stories and approximately 124 units, I believe. And they're linked together. You can see in the kind of the northeast western corner of the site by a single-story building that's designed to include common recreational space for the 2 developments. So that particular portion is single-story for the proposal. There is internal parking under both buildings, and those internal underground parking areas are linked under that building. So you can access underground parking between both buildings. As I mentioned, the PUD request is part of this application. That allows the applicant and the city to negotiate the zoning standards for the subject property. In this case, the applicant's asking for deviations for related to parking, open space, the front setback as it relates to County Road E, and building height, and proposing enhancements related to building materials and outdoor amenities. And I'll go into details about those here in a moment. To give you a general view of the concept renderings that are included by the applicant in your packet, this is a proposed look of the site looking northeast, basically from the corner of Hoffman Road and County Road E to the 4-story portion of the building. It gives you a sense of the concept that the applicant's proposing in the mix of materials, height of the building, and the like. A couple of things that staff would just highlight for you. You can see kind of pedestrian figures in front of the building and some bicyclists that are included to help give a sense of scale of the building. And then along this County Road east side of the building, you also notice that there are some individual entrances to units on that side. So to include what's called commonly walk-up style units, so they'd have a separate entrance on the outside of the building. The next rendering you see here is kind of the opposite of the very first view that we saw in that PUD summary slide. This is looking from Hoffman Road, then back to the south and east. You can see the single-story common space building that links the 2 buildings together, and you can see the underground parking access on the Hoffman Road side of the building. This also gives you a sense of the 4-story building that's on the right side of the side, closer to County Road E and Hoffman Road, and the 5-story building that's in the northern or more internal side of the site. This design lends itself to trying to internalize the height of the building more to the center, to the inside part of the property. And it also gives you a comparison you can see here, or attempts to give you a comparison you can see here to the Barnum building to the east, showing that the 5-story building is approximately the same height as the 4-story Barnum building that has a peaked roof. So the design, the PUD concept design that staff is recommending approval tonight does include in that recommendation a few revisions that we plan to work out with the applicant and to bring back to you in that final stage. And these are detailed in the resolution that's before you tonight. The architecture revision that's proposed is some enhancements in the variety of the materials included on the site and some articulation of the building to help reduce, the overall size and density and appearance of the bulk of the site. It also includes a provision to ask for enhanced materials around that walk-up units to highlight that entrances and make them look a little bit more like individual units. I would note for you that you did receive a revised resolution tonight. Originally, the resolution that was included in your packet included a provision related to the architecture around the walk-up units. Not only did it include the enhancements of the architecture around them, it included a recommendation to actually consider raising the entrances so they were true walk-up or more brownstone kind of appearance. The applicant and the planning commission both agreed that, the applicant stated during the planning commission that would create some challenges for the ADA access to those sites, and the planning commission agreed to remove that. So staff has updated that provision to, again, only ask for the architectural enhancements and not the raising of the entrances in themselves. The next one relates to building height and setback. These kind of go hand in hand. The northern building proposed to be 5 stories and 59 feet, again, approximately the same height design as the Barnum to the east. And then the southern building closer to County Road E, 4 stories or 48 feet. The code would require some increased setback as the building gets higher. And in this case, the site meets those increases that the code would require in all instances except the setback along County Road E. In that case, the ordinance would require a 33-foot setback, but the applicant is proposing 22. This is acceptable to staff under the overall PUD based on the inclusion of the architectural enhancements, the walk-up units, and that more pedestrian-friendly kind of styling. But it's part of the overall package, again, that is being proposed here. Under the traffic and circulation section of your report, it should be noted that in this case, the consensus opinion of the engineering, fire, and public safety and community development departments is that the northern drive lanes for the parking lots on both the Barnum site and the proposed site here are linked together. That creates the best overall design from public safety and access for emergency vehicles and just overall circulation and disbursement of vehicles from the site. So that's a noted change in your resolution for tonight. There's also another condition of approval, that relates to removal of some stalls from the interior cul-de-sac. So if you look here at the applicant's site plan, you'll see that interior parking lot that runs east and west behind the 4-story building and the cul-de-sac, the internal cul-de-sac in the building. So originally this design included those parking spaces, and the fire department had determined that given with those spaces in there wouldn't be sufficient room to have a fire truck or emergency vehicle come in there and still have enough room to turn around in there. So the condition of the revision condition that's included in the application tonight requires removal of those stalls. The fire marshal updated staff today that apparently they've been having ongoing discussions with the applicant, and they're attempting to refine their design to still include enough parking but make sure they've got adequate public vehicles or safety access. And so that would be a provision of the application that we would work out before the final stage PUD. And then just looking quickly back at the final things on our list here, the parking standards, the code would require up to 2 stalls per unit. The use of the PUD allows us to get a more targeted approach here that has been found to be successful at the Barnum site. And that's instead of looking at the parking ratio on a unit, just on a per unit basis, you look at it on a per bedroom basis. This use is proposed to include a number of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. So this is a more targeted and focused approach to parking, and staff is supportive with that proposal, again, consistent with the Barnum design. It also would likely required that as we negotiate with the applicant for the final stage PUD, there'll be some adjustments in the amount of parking and the number of units to make sure we're hitting this target. The applicant's also requesting a minor change to the parking stall size. Code would require them to be 8.5 feet by 20 feet, and the applicant's proposing 9 by 18.5. This is just for the portion of the stalls that are interior or underground parking. It just, with that design, helps them fit the footprint of the building better. And with the drive lane that's included in the building, functionally they'll function the same and have sufficient access. Last couple items on the list here, the open space standards of the code would require 500 square feet of open space per unit. The applicant's proposing 410. The staff is generally supportive of working towards a slightly higher amount of open space, more consistent with what the Barnum has, given the overall quality of the open space the applicant is proposing internal to the site. The game fields, the pool, the internal common space that the residents will have access for. And then finally, the staff is suggesting that the applicant add, that's a typo here, sorry, it should be an east-west trail connecting Linden and Hoffman Avenues on the north side of the site, just to aid in pedestrian connection through the site. With those revisions, again, we had kind of shown them in the concept plan that we see here. But with those revisions, staff is recommending approval. Would take comments and questions from the council, and would just remind you that as part of the feedback that we're looking for here tonight, specifically on 2 items related to park dedication. Park dedication is required of the applicant here because they are actually going to be platting the property. The park dedication can be provided to the city in either land, a portion of land for the site, or what's called a fee in lieu or cash to the city. There's a cash estimate that's included in your packet, but we know that the council has had some interest in talking about this item with the applicant, so we'd look to have the council have some conversation with the applicant tonight about that particular topic, because we do have some options in the negotiation of that particular part of the application. And then finally, just circling back to what I mentioned at the beginning of the application, we're looking for some general feedback from the council about the use of tax increment financing as it relates to including affordable units in this project. And again, with that, I'd stand with questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lindahl. All right, well, I'm going to kick things off with some of my initial thoughts. As a concept, I'm really supportive of it, and I won't pretend like I'm the biggest cheerleader when it comes to big apartment complexes or dense housing, but I recognize that there is a demand for it and a need for it. I think all these projects, when you're putting in apartment complexes, dense housing, you need to consider the surrounding area. So the fact that we already have Barnum next door, it's kind of on a busy road, it's in that corridor, I think it makes sense. So as a concept, I'd be supportive of it with the conditions that city staff has pointed out and placed on it. The one concern that I have is the idea of going to 5 stories. I think that deviates from what we've typically done in this city. And I don't want this to create the slippery slope of today it's 5 stories, the next project is 6, and we start to get tall real quick. I look at the Waters that I drove by earlier today, and that's a very, very big building. It's 4 stories. I think 4 stories is the appropriate height for any building in White Bear, so I would welcome some continued conversations with regard to that. That's my biggest concern of the concept itself. Beyond that, the parking, all those other things, I'll defer to city staff. That's what you guys do, making sure that we're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. When it comes to TIF, I would not be supportive of the tax increment financing. I think the Barnum, if that's the example of the most recent housing project and it's considered a success, it's at 97% rental rate, and that's 100% market-based. I think that's how we should build apartment complexes. I don't like, as a matter of principle, the notion that some of our residents are subsidizing the housing for some of our other residents. So I'm sure the council has some more thoughts on TIF, but I would not be supportive of moving forward with the project that included TIF. As far as a park dedication goes, I see the basic concept of a park dedication as just that. It's land that's pursuant to that project that's supposed to be reserved for some recreational area when you build a project. To just simply write a check, that seems like a shakedown, and that's not what the intent of a park dedication is. So I would welcome more feedback from city staff on what they think is the appropriate way to go. But just at this early stage, I think actual land and creating some kind of recreational outdoor space, particularly its proximity to the Vento Trail, I think that makes sense for us to utilize some space in that area and not just cash a check and put it elsewhere. So those are my early thoughts on this project, and I'll open up the council for further discussion. Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd also be interested in understanding more about the park dedication fee and how that number was derived. What's the formula? What are the driving factors that create that? And I guess if there's any comparisons to either Barnum One or to other developments, I'm looking for context because it doesn't seem quite right, but I'm curious and I don't know, so I'm just going to ask.
Mayor, members of the council, so the cities set a park dedication fee. The statute lays out that the cities can ask for a park dedication fee in either land or
Ask for or require?
Require.
Thank you.
In either a percentage of land or a fee in lieu or cash, okay? As the mayor's kind of alluded to, the idea of having land associated with a project is designed to make a more direct connection between where potential park improvements occur and the actual development itself. So it's directly serving the residents of the development that's created. The option to do a fee in lieu or cash is important because there could be situations where communities have adequate park facilities already existing in the area, or those facilities that exist could use some improvement. So you can use those fees to, improve an existing facility that's around it. The fee, I believe in statute is 5%, I think, of land or an equivalent cash amount. So cities take a look at the market and estimate what an acre of land would go to, and then estimate a fee based on that land breakdown formula. In our case, the fee is around $550 a unit, which is significantly lower than I've experienced in other communities in the West Metro, but I'm not sure how it compares to the other communities around us and the land values on this side of town.
Councilmember Jones.
So a couple things. I'll start off with the easy one. I'm just not looking for another millennial Gen Z building. Not interested. I mean, it's like I hear, and I'm a pro apartment guy. I get, hey, they're Legos. They're easy. They're cheap. I know it. Don't say they're not. And they're all over everybody else. I don't want to look like everybody else. That's why the Barnum appealed to me as far as the look and feel. And you could say it's old school, but I'm very leery about what's 20 years down that box construction is going to look dated then. So that's just kind of my thing, but I get it. As far as the whole affordable housing, I do say, hey, if you're going to do 45 units, what is the benefit of the other 24,800 and whatever residents? It makes sense. But we do have an opportunity to do that, and the park dedication fee, no. That's just not even going to ring the cash register even close for me. I'll just throw it out there because I'm a poor negotiator. I want that triangle piece across the western side. You give that all to me.
Not to you personally.
No.
That would be a conflict of interest.
That would be, thank you for that clarification. That becomes park. That becomes what it should be, and the Bruce Fenno Trail, no matter what it turns into be, no matter where it goes, it's going to be a link. I would give us the asterisk that if that somehow does not happen, that we do have the ability to do something else with that land. I wouldn't want to paint us in a corner.
Okay.
You can't, says city manager. Green space is good too. So, but I am still looking at the affordable housing saying, can we cut that number in half? That it's not that much TIF. If I'm going to give you TIF, I want that land, that's for sure, but I'm not expecting everything. But I'm also not going to stand at it either.
Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll touch on the other two issues. I'm unalterably opposed to TIF, but not for the same reasons that have just been voiced. I think there are times when TIF makes sense, but in this situation, to subsidize luxury apartments with to use our tax base to subsidize luxury apartments is just plain that I won't get on board with that. I think there may be other cases where TIF may in fact be a highly appropriate tool, and perhaps even in some other affordable housing approaches. But the idea that we're going to provide financing and provide a relatively short-term period of time by which people can have subsidized housing, I think we need to be thinking much differently about the long-term sustainability of our affordability plan. And I think we ought to let this borrower or this builder go out and talk to the markets, borrow money, have clear sight lines to their investors and their customers, not have to be worrying about affordable housing options, and let them build their luxury housing and do what they're going to do. And so with regard to TIF, no way, Jose. So the park dedication, I'm interested in seeing something different. I'm open to a discussion about how do we leverage the proximity to the Vento Trail. I think that's an intriguing opportunity. I don't have a formed thought on that, but I would be interested in understanding that. And the last item is the 5 stories. I am, like the mayor, I am highly opposed to opening up the creep. Here's my assessment. We have no other 5-story buildings in the city right now. In the 4 communities that make up County Road E, starting in Montemita, coming through White Bear, Gem Lake, and down to Vadnais, including a whole stretch of hotels, we have no 5-story buildings. I see no value. I don't want, and I just don't want them in my community. If we're going to have a quaint community, I think that's a part of it. And I would remind some of my, not all of you were members at the time, but when a 5-story building was proposed on the north side of town, there was, I think Mr. Jones' language was fire and pitchforks. And if it was not acceptable in the north side, I want to know why it might suddenly be acceptable on the south side. So what I've been thinking about is, if we're going to articulate a standard, I want to know that the sauce for the north side goose is exactly the same sauce for the south side gander. And I don't see that that's at play here. So unalterably opposed to 5 stories.
Anyone else on the council?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I have a quick question. This, the plat, it says that, I might be confused. It says that it'll need to be platted, and so the county says they were going to want an additional 10 feet of right-of-way along County E as frontage. How does that impact the fact that we have a variance that they're asking for in terms of that space.
So,
Isn't that kind of the same space? Like, we're giving it to the county?
members of the council, in a situation like park dedication, in a situation where an applicant is platting property, the government agency that is the owner or the manager of the road next to it has the ability to ask for additional right-of-way to facilitate their plans, their future plans for that road. Is that a fair way to summarize it? And so this is their opportunity, this is the county's opportunity to ask for additional land. That does shrink, or reduce is a better word, reduce the land that's available to site the building. But I would say that it's not as a direct connection as I think I hear you asking for in your question, because there are a lot of other factors that make up the concept setback that's proposed here. Certainly, the amount of internal space, the recreational space, the design of the parking lot, the positioning of the buildings, the footprint of those buildings could be shaped in a different way and change what the setback is. What staff attempted to do here in forming up a concept plan with the applicant was to create a design along County Road E that had what was felt to be a minimum amount of appropriate setback given the height of the building and the road, but an acceptable reduction based on the desire to have a better looking building with better materials and an architectural design that attempts to break up what the appearance of a long wall of a building. So it's all kind of mix. The concept is a mix together. If the design of the building was different, staff would suggest a different setback could be appropriate. So it's kind of a package deal in this case. And again, the idea of having a reduced setback along the County Road E side, which has the inherent openness of also having the road next to it, but still having a significant setback to lessen the impact of that road on the building, was the goal here. Is that, sorry if that's too detailed an answer?
No, it's fine. I was just trying to figure out, I mean, where the part of the PUD has said that they don't have to match the setback requirement by, well, it's 30 feet from the rear. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out the placement of all of that, where that goes, plus the additional 10 feet that the county now is going to have on that road.
Yes.
At some point, you're right. Building on the right of way.
But the setback that is proposed at 22 feet is, you're right, I think, an 11-foot reduction to the 33 feet that would be required by code. But it's happening from the new property line that already includes that 10 feet. So it's not like the 10 feet is inside that setback.
Okay, thank you.
If that helps.
Yes.
Sorry, if that more accurately answers your question.
Yes, yeah, I wondered where that went.
Yep.
Okay, and so if they somehow wanted to come back and say, okay, we'll only build the 4-story building, that obviously limits their proposed height by, 10 feet, and then we might not be looking at the same setback requirements anyway, right? Because those are dependent on the height.
Well, in this particular case, the setback that we're talking about is along County Road E and next to the 4-story building. Okay. So assuming that building stays 4 stories in its current design, the setback would stay the same. The 5-story portion of the building that's on the northern side, or the internal side of the property, already meets the setback requirements in the code for having a higher height. The question now for the council is that the appropriate height for the site? It sounds like.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to, on the design idea, on the concept and everything, you're actually just talking about my biggest hang-up, which is that long wall along County Road E. I don't know, I feel a little better about it after hearing you describe it, but, I mean, that's not something I'm going to live or die on, but I really like the Barnum because it's, it's set back, so that the 33 feet is better than the 22. That's, if I could change something, that's what I would change. I'm listening to my colleagues on the height thing. I've always been, sort of treetops. Like when we talked about that one downtown here, I think 4 stories got you to treetops. I think 5-story gets you maybe above treetops, so you could sort of see it as you're approaching town. You could see a building coming out of the skyline. That would be a limit for me. So if 4 stories is treetops here, I agree with you. 4 stories down south too. I mean, I don't have a hard rule on it, but one project at a time. But I'm listening, and I don't lose sleep over it, I guess maybe is what I'm saying. The park dedication, the alternative, just to offer the other side of the financial case for a park dedication fee, is that the applicant would have that land available to do something else with that land that could bring in property tax revenue. It could be retail, it could be housing, it's a pretty small piece, but it could be something that brings in revenue for the rest of the city. So that's what you're giving up when you make it a park. And that's, again, I'm not losing sleep either way. I mean, if we can get that, I like the vision of a Bruce Fennell Trail coming through and some space to stop, picnic. I think that's the vision, in that little triangle. That's great. That sounds great. But payment in lieu means we get a little money on the front end, and then future development could happen there, and we get property tax revenue. So that's kind of where my thought process is there. I think I share some of my colleagues' concerns on TIF. I think we've done a good job as a city in avoiding TIF. We are not heavy TIF users in the city of White Bear Lake. I think the memo says the last time we did it was 2009. I've never voted for a TIF project since I've been here. So I think that's a better way to run the city. I think we should continue, and we're going to have a meeting soon on housing, and we have a housing task force report to look at, to continue to look for naturally occurring affordable housing or other ways to accomplish the right mix in the city, but foregoing property tax revenue to say there's a city interest in doing that is a bridge too far for me. I wouldn't go that far to get affordable housing to give up property tax revenue. And the memo kind of cited that maybe it's a but-for argument. We're gonna but-for this apartment building, we wouldn't get the property tax revenue. We're just giving back some of it, but we are getting some property tax revenue from the site now. I mean, it's not like a vacant lot. We're going to get more obviously out of this project, but there is some. It's not quite 100%. But before we build it, then we get property tax revenue. We can put some of it back for affordable housing. So I'm a no on the TIF as well. I think that covers the list of feedback, right?
Question for Mr. Lindo. I want to be crystal clear on the PUD process. This is just the phase 1 concept stage. So by no means is this the stamp of approval from the city saying, build it. There's a lot more back and forth that has to happen. Is that correct?
Mayor, members of the council, the short answer is yes. What you're approving tonight is the overall concept with the suggested revisions, and then your feedback on park dedication and TIF, and staff would then go back to work with the applicant on implementing that recommendation.
So if it was the will of the council to say, listen, we're a hard no on 5 stories, it needs to be 4-story cap, is this resolution the appropriate mechanism to convey that message?
Mayor, members of the council, I would say yes. If that's your qualifier, I think we can amend the resolution before you tonight, if you're comfortable with that, to reflect that, because that allows, again, it documents your direction as far as the revisions go for the concept that you have, and then we can work on implementing those revisions and that concept, and bringing the next stage back to the Planning Commission and the council.
Okay. Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Lindahl, so hear this thoughtfully, because it's intended, it's not, staff are in a challenging position in negotiating when the council has not firmly spoken on something, and you don't have hard lines. You have multiple objectives that we have given you to, go out and develop a property in highest and best use, and let's try and optimize tax revenue, and let's try and provide dots. Okay, so multiple objectives. How would you, if we approved this resolution, either with or without the, so what are the other drivers that we ought to know about are the kind of things that you, in your professional capacity, and your staff and others, how are you going to represent that on our behalf with the developer? And what are there other concerns that we ought to know about that we're not talking about?
Mayor, members of the council, I really do feel like the staff report and the resolution before you includes the important things to move this concept forward should the council choose to do that. To have some, and it sounds like there's some consensus around height, and we can, if the council chooses to do so, you can amend the resolution to include that direction. And then, it would be very helpful for staff and the applicant if you could voice some consensus around the park dedication and TIF, and it sounds like there's been some pretty well laid out initial thoughts on that. So we would just be looking for, a consensus around direction for those two items, park dedication and TIF. And then we go back to the drawing board and we look, or the concept plan, excuse me here, and we look at, the open space changes that could be made here, the parking ratio based on the number of units, and then, the number of units change. If the height changes, the number of units could change, and so maybe that solves some of the problem. Otherwise, we've got to, look at the design of the site and where we could add some parking or the like. The challenge for staff here, I don't think, is so much the direction of the council, because it seems like you're firming up a pretty firm consensus. The challenge becomes that all of these things kind of relate to each other. If the unit count goes down, the parking changes a little bit. Well, if the footprint changes of the building or the parking changes on the building, then that affects the open space. So I would anticipate that, the developer has professional staff, that engineers and architects that are trained in how to do this. And so staff just gives them the direction from council, carries your message forward, and we ask the developer, the property owner, to figure out how to make all these things fit, and then we bring it back to you based on that direction.
If I might continue, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
So Mr. Jones raises an issue about the design, the boxiness, I'm trying to use his language. How would you articulate that? Because that's been raised not in a firm way. I think there's some fuzziness on that aspect. How do you interpret and how would you represent that fuzziness to the developer? Because if there's going to be a change in that, that's kind of significant. So how does that play out?
So, Mayor, members of the council, I would just circle back to the conversation about we have yet to develop the zoning standards specific to this to correspond to this land use category. And in my experience in working in other communities and drafting regulations like this, there are specific standards that you can talk about, and that those have to do with, in broad terms, the length of the wall that you're talking about and the architectural features you use to break up that wall. And that can be a change in the plane or the depth of the building based on X amount of square, of linear feet of the building. It can be changes in the height of the building in certain sections. So, you make it look, if you look at buildings in downtown, the older development, more historic development pattern had smaller buildings and changes of roof pitch. So you can make what appears to be a very long building look like several small buildings and break up the massing of it and really impact the design. So there's changes in features, like balconies or trim on windows or changes in materials. And the applicant has done some pretty good work here to start that process. But if what we're hearing from the council is there's concerns about the overall boxiness of that, that's good direction, I think, for staff and the applicant to work on that.
Thank you.
Member Jones.
So I just, not jumping down Mr. Edberg's, you used the word luxury. This is a market rate development. This is not a premium.
What's the signage on E?
Right, and so I just want to clarify that, not jumping down your throat. Hope you understand. I mean, this is market rate. These are average market rate apartments that are coming in here. I'm stack 'em high, let 'em fly guy in the appropriate place. So I certainly appreciate what Mr. Edberg is saying. Hey, not up there, not here, I don't want to get into that. Clarifying that it was a 4-story building at 3rd and Cook, not a 5. I would never approve that, and it is for the area. We got to look at each development. Bill, you brought it up. Let's take a close look, but it's understandable. I mean, we're going way past. With the aspect of, compromise, Mr. Lindahl and Mr. Mayor, is just saying, hey, well, I don't want a flat roof. I want a pitched roof like we got with the Barnum. The cost with that, for example, look at our history and say with Boatworks, all right, we put a pitched roof on. We didn't want that look, so the pitched roof came on, the building got taller. The building got flatter towards 61. We made a lot of compromises on the last TIF project that we did, where we saw a heck of a lot of benefits for our residents coming into the marina side. So whenever a resident talks to me, I'm like, well, okay, I know we made some concessions on the 61 side versus the marina side. I'd rather walk along the marina side than the lake, but things can be done. I'm seeing the plantings grow along there. I stared at them being stuck in traffic coming here tonight. Yeah, let's just move. And the 4-story thing, the 3-story thing is just, if we want anybody to do anything, we got to get off the 3-story. We got to get off it. It's not construction-wise, cost-wise, it's not feasible anymore. Old plan. Nobody's going to come in and build 3 max or 36, whatever it's the foot, really, the story, not it's the footage. So that's what I'm saying. Be cognizant to that as far as our discussion. But yeah, that is, I'm not opposed to a 5-story building right here. I'm also not opposed to using some TIF, not to the degree that it was listed. I don't think we need that many units. I'll just say, hey, do it this. But, they put it in their report, in the Shaver-Richardson report. I mean, 50% of the area, what does affordable mean? 50% of the area mean income, a metric that nearly 1/3 of our current White Bear Lake households meet right now. 30%, 1 out of 3 people meet that recommendation. Doesn't have to be here, but we got to start thinking about that. How are we doing that? And this may not be the right project, and I understand that. So with that, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So let me just make sure I got this right in my head, Mr. Lindo. If we approve the resolution, it doesn't mean that during the next phase, we don't have the opportunity to say, no, 5 stories is not appropriate, we need it to be 4. Do I have that correct?
Mayor, members of the council, the short answer is yes, but I think if the council, I think it would be beneficial for the applicant to have, if that's the leaning of the council, to know that at this stage.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Sure. knowing that at this stage would help them regarding parking and traffic and all of that. So providing that feedback to the applicant tonight would be very helpful for the applicant and staff moving forward as we move to the development phase.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, I'll move the resolution as it's in front of us. Do we want to have I mean, I can move that, and we can have an amendment to do 5 stories. I mean, I'm comfortable moving the resolution in front of us. And I didn't say this before, but I as reading the memos and looking at the planning commission minutes, I thought staff did a really good job in sort of all the concerns I had, the staff also had, and then got these things, really did a good job in advance of this meeting, getting it to this point. So I thought that was, just as I'm reading, oh, good, I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they did that. So good work on the staff level.
And if I may, are you moving the revised resolution
Well, the
that's in front
revised,
of you?
yeah, the one
Okay.
that we were handed right for the meeting. Yep, with the
That's highlighted.
additional architectural features to enhance each entrance, which is already.
The council has a motion before it on the revised resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Further discussion.
So we're not putting in anything that says no?
We would do that now, right?
We're discussing now, yeah.
All right.
Councilmember Edberg.
I would move to amend the motion to require not more than 4 stories in the development.
I have a motion to amend the resolution. I would just suggest, just to properly couch the amendment, the proposed amendment, that we add item 2F, a 4-story cap, as one of the conditions that we're placing on the plans. Do I have a second? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, all those in favor of amending the resolution to impose a 4-story cap, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries, so the resolution will be amended to include item 2F, which has a 4-story cap on the plans. And with that, I have a motion and a second before us. Councilmember Edberg.
So I don't have a motion on this, but I sense, Mr. Leno, that you can hear that there's not a great appetite for TIF. Do you have enough guidance on that topic, or do you need a motion? Since that's not part of the resolution and not part of our action tonight, what do we need? What do you need from us in this action to convey that to the applicant?
Members of the council, if the mayor would care to kind of just make a statement on what you feel the consensus of the council is. No motion is necessary on either park dedication or TIF because they're not, approved items as part of this.
Sure, happy to do so. So, to those that are listening, it is clearly the consensus of the council that we are not interested in TIF, and since that is not subject to approval within this resolution, if and when you decided to come to the council with the Phase 2 plans, and it included TIF, I think you're going to face some pretty significant opposition. So as you go forward with your plans, you might want to look at a plan that's adopted that does not include tax increment financing. Sound fair? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although it is not required for this resolution, it is listed in this resolution, number 4, but also 3O. And the council could choose to remove it. I don't think it is necessary, but again, you could if you chose to, just to let you know.
I think it's clear.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Well, actually, let me go back. We had a motion and a second on the original resolution. It has now been amended. Do I have a motion on the resolution as amended to include item 2F, a 4-story cap?
No, we already voted on that.
The amended resolution is before us. The amended resolution is still before us. It's been amended, but as amended, it's before us. You don't need another motion. We just need to
Okay.
vote.
All right, so I have a motion and a second on the resolution before us. I'm not sure I agree with that, Bill, but we'll talk about that after.
We need a parliamentarian.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, the resolution passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, discussion. We have nothing scheduled. And item 10, communication from the city manager. Item A, energy improvement project update. Is this Mr. Copy or is this you?
Either one of us.
Whoever would like to take this one. Thank you.
In November 2021, the city entered into a contract with Train to complete energy improvements throughout the city, which included HVAC and controls, building envelope, and installation of solar. So just wanted to provide an update, a brief update to the city council. The sports center, that project is about 90% complete. The solar array on the sports center, that portion of the project is about 0% complete as of right now. Although we are working on that. And then LED lighting upgrades, various lighting updates around the community and facilities, that's about 75% complete. We have run into some issues regarding delay due to supply chain and other just communication things that we are working through. So I just wanted to provide a quick update. I don't know, Mr. Copy, if you have anything to add to that.
I don't have anything to add specifically, but would entertain any questions that council has.
Council, any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
What are we doing with light bulbs?
It's a great question.
Depot doesn't take them.
The light bulbs on the trail
Right.
on Lake. I know you were going to go back, right? You're going to go back and talk to Train about what we've got and.
Councilmember Hughes, you're referring to this 4,000 versus 3,000 light rating and what we're doing as a city policy, right? Okay.
Yes.
Mayor, members of the council, regarding the trail lighting or the pedestrian scale lighting, we went back and reviewed it. We do have at the mic. We did go back and review that with Train and their light installer. We also reached out to other communities, other entities that we're working with. For a nominal restocking fee, we actually just got some information back this afternoon. But I think relatively painlessly, we'll be able to look at changing those. The majority of the communities that we're looking at are going with a 3,000 K for pedestrian scale lighting. However, sticking with a 4,000 K for more major intersection lighting. So along 61, some of our major intersections, to light those up for safety reasons. One thing I will note is that we did find out as we looked into this, the existing light that we put in as a test case is actually a 5,000 K. So even that is not as bright as what we would see with a 4,000 K. It was so we had them go back and look at that. So we are looking at getting that change order. Again, it's a nominal restocking fee to get those changed to get that switch to the 3,000 K. So. And that's the general consensus on what other communities are doing around us within the state. So,
Thank you.
Anything else? Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate the updated information, and I think this needs to be, at some point, we have multiple things on our agenda, but it's like, what's our vision for the larger aspect of energy conservation, energy efficiency, in the transition in management and leadership? I think we've had some of that just gets moved to the side for a while. That's fine. But at some point, I'd just say this is a topic worthy of a more robust conversation. But I'm not going to we got lots of other fish to fry first.
All right. Item 10B, Fire Ops 101 participation. Ms. Crawford.
Thank you, Mayor. So on May 21st, on Saturday, the mayor, Councilmember Hughes, and I participated in Fire Ops 101 with many other communities. It was hosted by the fire union, and it was wonderful. We went through search and rescue, live fire attack, vehicle extrication, and cardiac arrest management. So it was a good experience, I think, I'll speak for myself, but it was very eye-opening. It was a good experience. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything to add, but learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, first off, let me thank Chief Peterson and the department, those that volunteered on that day, to help kind of put us through the paces. It was an awesome experience, and if anyone else on the council that hasn't done anything like this has the opportunity to do it, do it. It gives you, at least I think, a very small taste of what firefighters go through, and we got to play with some cool equipment and understand and feel the heat in a simulated burn. And we did an extraction on a second floor where we drug a simulated person, a 130-pound dummy in pitch black conditions, full of smoke. So just to get some glimpse of what they're doing. And the point of it, and the lesson wasn't lost on me, is that when the council is making decisions about equipment that they're asking for, things that can help save their lives, save the lives of those that they're trying to help, that we understand fully what the job was. So again, I just want to say thank you to Chief Peterson and the guys and gals that kind of put us through the paces. It was a great experience, and I would recommend, like I said, anyone that has an opportunity to do it, do it.
Does it count if my neighbor rescued 2 pets, or does that, no?
It does not. It does not count. It does not count.
Was it from a burning building?
All right, anything else on that?
Not on that. I do have just one more update. Manitou Days and Market Fest begin this week. So obviously, big events in our community. Just thank you to all the volunteers and our staff in Public Works and Public Safety. It takes a lot. I know all of you know that much better than I do at this point. But the parade will be this Friday, and I think the council is excited to participate in that again. So looking forward to all of it. That's all I have.
Great.
What time do you want us and where?
6 o'clock on the.
Fire station.
Yep.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. We're adjourned. Bill, you got to let me. We have a motion and a second on a resolution. The resolution is amended. Motion second.
Blah, 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 blah.
So we got it up in order to amend it. No, because you moved the motion forward, and I seconded that.